Throughout Indo-European mythology, there appears a reoccurring tale of the gods and their great war for control over the earth against the raw forces of nature and other chaotic, dark forces that emerge from the deep. In Greek myth, this tale is mentioned by Homer and elaborated by Hesiod in his great work, the Theogony, which tells of the beginning of the gods and their struggle against the Titans. In Celtic myth, this tale is known as the Battle of Maige. There are in fact two battles of Maige. The first is led by Nuada Ergidlau. Having been living in the far north learning all the magic of the world, Nuada leads the tribe of the Tuired to take Ireland. Yet the land is already held by a group called the Fir Bolg, those who raised the mountains, made the great plains, and dug the deep places of the earth. The gods come in a dark cloud and land atop a great mountain, and Nuada offers to share the land equally with them, but Echid, king of the Fir Bolg, rejects the offer, opting for battle. The terms of combat are set out, and both sides are given equal equipment and numbers to ensure a fair fight. The battle is long and grueling, and after much suffering, a duel takes place between Nuada and Shreng, the leader of the hosts of the Fir Bolg. It is a close fight, but Shreng strikes the arm from Nuada, and the Dagda must save him and bring him off the field. The following day, Shreng issues another challenge to Nuada. The king agrees, but only if Shreng fights with one hand. The champion refuses, but perhaps because of this refusal, the army of the Fir Bolg fails. Echid, the king, falls, and surrender is made, where the Fir Bolg get 1/4 of the land. The Fir Bolg almost certainly relate to gods of nature and the land, being subdued by the order conceived by the gods of art, skill, and humanity. But all is not well after the victory. Nuada, having lost his arm, must give kingship to Bress. And not only this, there is another force arraying against them, a dark force more powerful and terrible than the Fir Bolg. Those beings known as the fomorians, those from beneath the waves, the dark beings from the underworld. With Nuada unable to reign as king due to his missing arm, Bress, the new king, whose father is in fact a fomorian, submits to them without a fight. 2/3 of all the produce of the land must be forfeited to them every Samhain, and the gods suffer under terrible oppression, being enslaved and starved. Yet hidden away in the far reaches of the world, a young boy matures, hidden from the searching eyes of the fomorians, son of the god Cian and the fomorian Ethu, grandson of the fomorian champion Balor. Lug of the fierce blows is raised by Talthu, queen of the Fir Bolg, and trained also by Goithnu, the great creator god, and Manannan, god of the seas, and the land of paradise. Finally, when he has matured and mastered every art, he emerges from hiding and sets forth for the liberation of the gods. Lenk and Credna, having managed to craft a silver arm for Nuada, are able to reinstall him as king, ousting Bress, who is furious at having lost power. He goes to the fomorians and pleads with them for their aid to reimpose him as the king of the Tuired. Indech, the king, and Balor the champion agree, and they set forth to smite down the gods and their silver-armed king. On the night, a great celebration is being had for the return to the throne of Nuada. The doorkeeper of the city of the gods spies a stranger approaching, wearing a golden diadem upon his head, and shining brightly, leading a host of warriors, the riders of the Sidhe. One of his hosts proclaims when asked by the doorman, "This is Lug Lon Skelach," meaning the fiercely combative one. son of Cian, son of Diancecht, son of Ethu, grandson of Balor. But the doorman stood firm. Only those who possess an art not already had by those within could be allowed to enter. But Lugh pronounced that he was a god of all the arts, and when this was told to Nuada, he was invited inside, where he proved his tactical skills by defeating the king many times in Fithel, and his strength by outperforming Ogma the strongman in boulder throwing. Nuada agreed that Lugh should be the one to lead the gods into battle with the fomorians to win their freedom. But Lugh was not a fool in preparing for this great battle, but he took counsel with his brothers, Ogma and Dagda, and they planned the battle out in secret. Then they sought out the 3 gods of craft to provide them with the equipment they needed to win. When the fomorians arrived and began to amass their army, Lugh asked the Dagda to go to a meeting with them to see what he could learn about their activities. Though they made a mockery of him, the Great Father was able to secure the help of the Morrigan in the coming battle and the daughter of Indech. The wind was hot and dry as the battle began. For fear of his safety, the other gods had drugged and bound Lugh to prevent him from entering the battle, for they feared the greatest among them might be killed. Or in another version, he is told to remain behind and guarded by 9 warders. But the battle did not go well, and the fomorians were gaining ground. When Lugh awoke and realized what was happening, he burst forth like a flame, the thick chains snapping like dry twigs crackling in a blazing fire. Flying to the front lines atop his mighty white steed, he dismounted and assembled the other gods, chastising them for their hubris and their ineffective fighting. He chanted great spells upon them, dancing his war dance upon one leg, with one eye and one arm, imploring them not to fight blow for blow, but to send the enemy to the underworld by whatever means they could muster. Fair or unfair, honest or dishonest, right or left. For this was a fight for existence, and should they lose, all would be destroyed. It was then he called forth his great riders, and it was the first time that any had rode a horse into battle, as when Lugh rode out to do battle with the enemy that day, with his great spirits of the storm wind flowing before him. Nuada and Maige had engaged Balor, even as Ogma did battle with Indech. In one huge stroke, Balor Biemnach sent both their heads rolling across the ground. Lugh spotted this from across the field and rode out to meet his grandfather. "You will not take our crops, nor body fines or honor, you foolish peasant who brings the world near destruction. Go back beneath the waves. My flood will wash you away. Come storm winds and flashing fire, light of the sun and radiance of moon." Then he cast his mighty lightning stone from his sling. It shot across the sky, shattering the eye of Balor, and breaking the clouds which flooded forth, creating a great lake where he fell. Then the hero spied Indech, who was ready to give the death blow to Ogma, and he cast another stone from his sling, nearly taking the head from the king of the fomorians. "Who is that?" asked the king of his harper, quaking in fear. "It is I, Lugh, the fierce striker, one who does not fear you, nor love you, and who never dies, one possessed of all the powers. Flee from here, go back beneath the waves, or I will kill all of you with my shot which never errs." Persuaded by his harper, Indech drops his sword and runs. The Morrigan proclaims doom, and the rest of the Fomorian army falls into panic and flees as well. It was then that Ogma rose and took the great sword of Indech, which contained the ability of speech. Lugh sought out breast then amongst the fleeing soldiers. He dared not try to fight Lugh, and dropped to his knees he begged for his life. He told them to plant, sow, and harvest on a Tuesday, and ensured the agricultural cycle, and for this Lugh spared him. Then, together with Ogma and Dagda, they snuck into the realm of the fomorians, and freed the harp of the Dagda, with which he summoned the seasons. Order was restored, the sun passed over their heads, great feasts were had, and Lugh was proclaimed king of the gods. His great wedding feast took place. The Morrigan sang praises of the day, but warned that it would not last forever. Someday evil would rise again. The people would become at odds with their parents. They would not follow the gods and the ways of order and goodness. And so Lugh was ever vigilant, and with a hard hand and craftiness, always he worked to prevent the chaos that would consume the world. This was a slightly condensed version of both battles of Maige. I hope you found it interesting, and if you did, you'll like, subscribe, and support our channel through Patreon.